Hello， 大家好，欢迎大家来到区块市的 Podcast， 我是区块市的作者许明恩。那先简单介绍一下区块市区块市一个礼拜出刊3封的 email 给付费的会员，那其中一封就是你现在听到的区块市 Podcast。这一集我们这个来宾非常的特别他从这个海外远道而来，那因为我们现在在录音的这个时间呢，正好是台北 Blockchain Week， 那所以他正好也来参加这个台湾的活动，包含这个区块先生的活动，那所以我们就顺道就是邀请他，然后一起来参与我们的录音。那他是谁呢？他是这个 Etherfi 的执行长 Mike Silagadze。我们待会会用英文的方式来录音，所以大家就是这一集是比较特别就是我们不是用这个中文的方式。那如果大家会觉得英文的内容是比较不熟悉的话，我们可以到 YouTube 上面去，我会放上字幕，然后让大家可以更轻松的听这样子。好，反正区块市的内容就是请大家直接到 Google 上面搜寻区块市趋势的事，你就可以找到所有的内容了。然后也欢迎大家用付费订阅来支持区块市的营运。好，那今天呢，我们非常开心可以邀请到这个 Etherfi 的执行长 Mike 来跟我们录音。那我们先请 Mike 跟大家打声招呼。
Sure. My name is Mike Silagadze. I'm the founder and CEO of Etherfi, and excited to be here. Yeah, this is my first time on podcast. Okay. Hopefully the first of many.
Okay, we have this chance to recording the podcast because Mike is attending the events in Taiwan recently. Can you introduce maybe yourself about how you first get into crypto and what you were doing before the Etherfi?
I got into crypto very early, since basically the beginnings of crypto. So I bought Bitcoin back in 2011 when it was trading at 80 cents a coin.
Do you still keep it?
I swapped it to Ethereum.
Okay.
So I did keep most of it. I didn't buy enough, otherwise I'd be on a private island somewhere. But I got into it really early. I read the white paper. I got very excited about this idea. I've been a libertarian most of my life. So this idea of a self-sovereign monetary system immediately appealed to me. And pretty much as soon as I read it, I had this aha moment that this was going to be a big deal. I've only had a few of those moments in my life, and that was one of those. So I've been kind of dabbling in it for a long time. But in parallel to that, right out of university, I started another company called Top Hat. It is an education technology startup. Basically, it sells software to universities to replace traditional print textbooks with digital interactive learning materials. So I started that company and I actually ran that for about 10 years. It ended up being pretty successful. The software is still used by pretty much every large university in North America. It's mostly limited to North America. And then in 2021, exited that company to a private equity fund in Canada, where the company was based. And at that point, I'd been dabbling and continuing to do this crypto stuff. On the side, I decided that I wanted to do something that was as far away from education technology as possible, and I was going to pivot and focus full time on crypto. But that background actually, I would say, has been very helpful for me because having built a real business with real customers, revenues, just understanding the mechanics of how to build a medium-sized software company has helped me quite a bit in building Etherfi. Because really that's how I approach things, is how do we build a product that actually provides value to customers that ultimately are willing to then pay for it, versus a lot of what happens in crypto is just really gambling with extra steps, lots of speculative kind of nonsense. And it's been great. I mean, I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah, and there have a lot of audience that know Etherfi by the reason you announced the Etherfi Cash card in Taiwan, especially because the Etherfi started restaking products. I think that is more advanced for normal people because that is not only the DeFi. I think that is the DeFi of the DeFi.
Yeah,
because maybe some DeFi guys can use the staking. That is, I think, more advanced people. And they use the restaking. That is another mechanism that's more complex. Can you share more about how you found in the Etherfi, why you started from the restaking area? Because that is more complex products, how you started.
Yeah, so it's funny. This was actually the vision from the very beginning. If you look at our Series A pitch deck, when we went out to raise venture capital fundraising, we had this sequence of steps from basically day one. That step one was build a staking protocol, and that would be how we get a lot of assets and get our first base of users, and then use that as a platform to grow into a much broader, kind of more holistic fintech offering, which is what I think we've got to today. And it's really remarkable that it's pretty much worked out exactly as we'd hoped. Like that pretty much never happens in the context of startups. Usually, like nothing you try works, and you just kind of stumble around and eventually end up doing something different than what you expected. But in this case, from the very beginning, this was the vision, and the vision was to create really a viable self-custodial alternative to traditional banking. So what Etherfi is, what we call ourselves, is a DeFi bank, which is not a bank in that we don't take user deposits, but it is a full end-to-end alternative to traditional banking. So you have the ability to hold your assets in your own self-custodial wallet. You have the ability to deploy or invest those assets in DeFi strategies. And there's a card and a way to borrow against those assets. So the very first step for us, and there's a number of reasons for it, but the very first step for us was the staking product, because that's the foundation of the equivalent of a checking account. Because a checking account, if you in the context of a bank, is you deposit your money and you get some basic level of interest on that checking account, in exchange for the bank going out there and investing your money. In this case, the base level of interest in DeFi is staking, and so that was this sort of foundational component of what would become the self-custodial account.
So the priority cannot be reversed, because you need to have some place to generate yield and then attract the people to put the money in, and they use it to maybe pay some products in their daily life. So if you issue the Ether.fi Cash card, maybe maybe the user may ask why I need to put my money into it. There have any benefits it?
I would say it's always hard to imagine, like, could we have done things differently? The answer is probably we could have. The reason staking made sense first is, one, because, as I said, it's a foundational component. But it was also a very large market. I mean, at the time, and even today to some extent, staking is the largest part of DeFi, right? If you take all the different staking protocols, it's the biggest component of DeFi. And we saw this market that was in need of transformation. And this is where the restaking piece comes in. That to us presented this opportunity to be able to re-platform the staking universe onto this new, more sophisticated product. And that generally worked out, because we launched this liquid restaking token that made restaking very easy, and we're able to grow very quickly. And as I said, that became then the foundation for our next product, which is liquid vaults, and then the next product, which is card, and then soon Etherfi Trade.
Okay, because you mentioned two ideas we need to dig into more deeper. The first one is the DeFi bank. I think because recently our guests in this podcast are the Taiwanese bank institutes, and they are more interesting recently in the DeFi and the crypto. And you propose a new idea about the DeFi bank. What is difference between the bank and the DeFi bank? You think the core difference between these two?
The one and primary difference is with the DeFi bank, it's self-custodial. So with a normal bank, when you deposit your money into a bank, it's no longer your money. It's really the bank's money. And it creates this moral hazard, as it's called, where the bank gets all the upside. In other words, they go and they gamble with this money. They buy, in the US, it's popular, for them to buy mortgage bonds, to give out loans to businesses, do all kinds of things with this money. And if they ever lose the money, which happens often, if they ever, for whatever reason, they make bad investments and they lose everybody's money, the government steps in and bails them out. So they get all the upside and then none of the downside. The downside is borne by either the customers directly or by taxpayers that end up bailing out that bank. And we've seen this happen over and over again. Of course, in 2008, there was a big, mortgage crisis. And then actually it happened again recently where they all lost tons of money on government bonds when the interest rates went up. And again, the government, comes in to bail them out. I mean, there's many reasons for these challenges, but this is one of the fundamental problems with modern banking is it's subject to these types of systemic failures. With the self-custodial model, there's nobody that holds your money. You have full custody of your assets. So we have, as Etherfi, we have no ability to touch users' funds. We can't take them from users. The government can't force us to give the user funds to them. Those assets are yours. It's the equivalent of having gold in a safe somewhere, except you don't have the hassle of have a big safe and piles of gold. So the main thing is custody. It's actually control. So if you move to a different country, if you're escaping persecution, whatever you want, those assets are fully yours as long as you have access to your private key or whatever way that you want to recover those assets.
How do you think the self-custodial risk about the using the DeFi when user maybe a counter they are not really know the dangers?
I think these are very solvable problems. Obviously, there's a lot of scams out there. If you accidentally sign the wrong transaction, someone can drain your wallet. If you lose your private key, then potentially you could lose access to your funds. These are technical problems, and they're very solvable. So, for example, with the scams and accidentally signing transactions, the way our system is designed, the way the Etherfi smart contracts are built, is it doesn't allow you to sign arbitrary transactions. In other words, there's no way a hacker could get your private key and take all your money. There's all kinds of protections that are built into it that prevent that from happening. That makes it less flexible in that you can't go and degen and do crazy things in DeFi, but it gives you that protection. And on the recovery side, the system has the ability for you to assign third parties that can help you recover your account if you lose your private keys. So these are all the protections that we have in place now. But over time, I think this system will get more and more robust to where, frankly, I think it'll be safer than a traditional bank. It's not that uncommon for an old person to, for example, get a phone call from a scammer and they accidentally give them too much information and then they drain their bank account and they have no recourse for that. So it's not like this doesn't happen in traditional finance as well. So frankly, I think DeFi can be, and self-custodial systems can actually be more secure over time.
I have to mention Etherfi feature that is passkey. Mm-hmm. I really like passkey design because it lets user not to write down their passphrase or private key, and they just use their already installed in their phone's password manager. To store their private key. Mm-hmm. I think that is very successfully designed in these products. Even people that first get into the crypto, they can use the Etherfi Cash card.
Yeah, it makes it so easy. So you don't need to worry about knowing what your passphrase is, having to deal with signing random crazy transactions. It really abstracts all that complexity. But if you want to, you can actually say, no, turn off the passkey. I want to only be able to sign with my hardware wallet. So you can actually set it up that way if you want. So it gives you that power so that you, with the hardware wallet, can then control that smart contract safe. But the default is passkey. And passkeys are pretty secure. If someone can get your passkey, they can basically get all the information on your phone and your computer and everything else. And it's a pretty robust.
But first, they need to use the password manager. Because I know several, including my wife. They don't use password manager the daily life. So the most robust their password is forget the password. Mm-hmm. They click the forget the password button and validates who they are and to get a new password again and again. Okay, that is the DeFi Bank side. Another question I think is the restaking. Mm-hmm. Can you explain simply for a general audience?
Okay, sure, I'll try.
It's a very challenging task.
Maybe I'll start very basic. So the way Bitcoin works, maybe everyone already knows how Bitcoin works, but the way Bitcoin works is you have thousands of computers, tens of thousands of computers all over the world. you send your transactions to. So you say, I want to send Bitcoin from point A to B, and they broadcast it to all these thousands of computers. And these computers play a game basically with each other where they guess random numbers very fast. They're just guessing trillions and trillions of random numbers per second. And every 10 minutes or so, one of them guesses right and gets a reward, which I think is like 5 Bitcoin or something these days. And so that's the system of consensus mechanism of Bitcoin, is that everyone agrees that you play this game, whoever guesses right gets a reward. And so that's how Bitcoin ends up getting distributed to everywhere. And this is called proof of work. The work that's being done is guessing random numbers really fast. And so people have huge computers, gigawatts of power being burned, guessing random numbers. Ethereum is different. Ethereum used to be proof of work, but then they migrated to proof of stake. The way proof of stake works is you take the network token. So in the case of Bitcoin, the network token is BTC. In the case of Ethereum, the network token is ETH. You deposit some amount of ETH into a special contract. These days, it's 32 ETH you deposit in a special contract, and that gives you the right to run one of these computers that processes transactions for the network. So with Bitcoin, it's you just boot it up, and you can basically run transactions. There's no permission required. With Ethereum, you stake Ether in order to have the right to run a part of the network. If you do something malicious, that ETH that you deposited, which now is worth, I think, like $120,000, gets slashed. So that's your incentive to do things correctly and do the right thing for the network, is you put this ETH at stake. If you do the bad thing, you can lose that money. So this is proof of stake versus proof of work. Proof of stake, of course, is much, much more efficient from an energy standpoint. I mean, it really just doesn't use any material amount of power, because you're not having to guess trillions of random numbers. You just deposit the stake, and there are rules by which people's ETH can be slashed if they do bad things. Okay, so then one can ask the question, well, you put in this 32 ETH. Well, it's not doing anything. You're getting some rewards for processing transactions on the network, but that's a pretty low risk thing. And this ETH the cost of capital is pretty high. It's just sitting there, right? So what if you could do something else with that ETH? Specifically, what if you could similarly put that ETH at stake in another crypto economic network? In other words, you could provide security to another network, maybe another blockchain, maybe it's an oracle, maybe it could be any number of things. And so you're sort of like layering the rewards that you're getting by enrolling that same ETH to providing security to a bunch of different networks. And that's called restaking. So you're staking your ETH, and then you're restaking it in a bunch of other networks. You're getting greater rewards. So it's like a generalization of the concept of staking.
So you do one work and maybe to secure multiple layer of the service.
Yeah.
So you can get multiple reward.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And this was pioneered by a company called EigenLayer, we now called EigenCloud. And so this was, a big transformation about a little over a year ago now, I guess, where a lot of people got very excited about restaking, and a lot of ETH ended up getting enrolled to do this.
Maybe not really many people know more about DeFi because that is more advanced area. But I think the Etherfi is the very leading platform or protocol in restaking area. Mm-hmm. Can you share a bit more about how the Etherfi or restaking to impact the DeFi or the Ethereum in their area?
So I mean, Etherfi definitely is the largest liquid staking. Liquid just means you get a receipt token when you stake and restake your ETH. So we're by far the largest ETH staker, restaker in the Ethereum ecosystem. That ecosystem is still evolving. There still is not, haven't been any networks that have really, restaking services that have really gotten to scale. I think there's only one that's getting close to actually operating and providing rewards. They're called CAP, and it's a sort of a stable coin kind of protocol. So this is still like an early, the whole restaking space is still in a pretty nascent stage.
Okay. So users have many opportunity or option to choose where they want to put their ETH to do restaking. Mm-hmm. And the advance that when you put your ETH into restaking, you also can maybe into the eigenlayer to choose you want to validate or you want to secure the services.
So that's what Etherfi does in the background. The user who uses Etherfi to stake their ETH doesn't need to think about any of that complexity. The user just shows up, they deposit their ETH, and they're done. They don't need to think about any of that. In the background, the Etherfi protocol deposits it into eigenlayer, and then at some point in the future, will enroll it, that ETH, into other networks to provide security in exchange for additional rewards. This is why staking with Etherfi tends to pay 10 to 20% more staking rewards than just vanilla staking directly into Ethereum.
So you intended to simplify this process that user not to have a lot of choice that they don't know what they want.
Yeah, and that's really our whole kind of broader mission of making DeFi easy for users. And I'm sure we'll get into it. That's also the nature of our liquid products, which are these strategy vaults that allow users to deposit assets into them, and those vaults automatically go and farm the best DeFi yields for them.
Okay, we stop the restaking part here, and we start Ether.fi Cash card that user more familiar with. And
I mean, it's funny you say that. Probably most people in crypto, if you go to like a crypto conference, most people, when you ask them like, what's Ether.fi, most of them would say like, oh yeah, you're the restaking protocol. So it's funny that for you, it's like, oh, you guys are the cash card program. I actually view that as success because it means we've sort of transcended those early stages and people view us as a more cohesive product. And so that's good. Not to go off too much on a tangent, but that's a similar kind of parallel to what happened with my previous company, Top Hat, is we initially started in one category of education software, and then over time we kind of expanded it and made it broader. And still there were many people, even 10 years later, that looked at it and said like, oh, you guys do that one thing, right? From the very beginning. And it takes a while for people to fully kind of understand everything that we do.
Great. Okay. Even many of our audience know or get a Ether.fi Cash card already. Can you explain what Ether.fi card is and what is difference between other crypto.com card like this?
Yeah, it's the best crypto card on the market. I think I can be arrogant and just say that. Why do I think it's the best crypto card on the market? One, it has no bullshit hidden fees. Pretty much every other crypto card on the market has tons of bullshit fees associated with them. Maybe there's a deposit fee. Maybe there's a withdrawal fee. Maybe there's a gas fees when you transact. Maybe there's FX fees that are really high, foreign exchange transactions. Any number of things. Most crypto cards scam their users. As Etherfi, don't do any of that. There are no hidden fees. We keep the fees as low as possible. It's probably fair to say there are no hidden fees. Two, we have great cashback. So the default cashback rate is 3% on all purchases, which is better than pretty much any other card. It's better in that one, there's effectively no limit. Even like the Coinbase card, if we want to use that as an example, they advertise, for example, a 4% cashback, but that's only if you have a ton of deposits with them. And it actually maxes out at $400. So it's a great, they can advertise a big number, but the reality is,
you have the limits.
Yeah, you can't actually get, very far with it. So those are some things that make it good. And, most importantly, it's fully self-custodial. It's backed by this DeFi smart contract safe that holds all your assets. So you don't need to give up custody of your crypto in order to use it. The vault that powers the Ether.fi Cash system allows you to actually borrow against your crypto assets. So you can borrow against your Ether, your Bitcoin, even your DeFi strategies. So if you deposit into the liquid strategy vaults, which earn you some rate of return, you can borrow against those assets, which is, I don't know of any other product that does something similar to that. Those are some of the reasons. I mean, it's easy to use. It's great. There's a nice mobile app, quick to sign up. So yeah, it's just a great product.
I think many people like to know more about the cashback. You said now Ether.fi Cash have 3% of cashback, and where is it come from?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with an Ethereum layer 2 called Scroll. Because of that partnership, Scroll is very generously supplying that cashback, and it's in the form of Scroll tokens. Most users choose to keep them because they want the upside of the token, and I think if for people that have been keeping it, they've done well. But some people choose to swap it into USD or Bitcoin or.
So that is different part with when you compare with a traditional credit card, because the credit card also have any cashback, but their cashback is fiat or some points in your bank.
Yeah.
And that is just like the stable coin that you can put in very restriction place. You just can use it for some channel. But when you get the crypto cashback, now you can choose to withdraw out from your wallet to your another wallet.
Or just spend it. Yeah.
Yes, or to convert to your favorite coins like Bitcoin or Ethereum, like that. That is very flexible and that is your choice. Very different from the traditional credit card.
Yeah, points programs on cards are generally a huge scam because they allow, whether it's the bank or whatever credit card program or even crypto card that have points programs, they can basically arbitrarily inflate and dilute those points, whenever they want. It's really the opposite of what crypto is intended to be, where it's transparent, there's a limited supply, and you know what you're getting. With points program, exactly as you say, they say, okay, these points, you can use it here, and maybe they're worth this amount, but only if you spend it this specific way. And that basically relies on users getting scammed. Either they don't spend the points and they just expire, or they do spend them, but they spend them in such a way that they get a lot less value for them. So this is I would say the system that we have is much more straightforward and honest. You get what you get. There's no games.
I have a friend that he is a very experienced airplane mileage program player, and he very like the crypto card is that the cashback crypto may be volatile. He think this is an advantage of the card because the mileage only go down, the price only go down.
Right.
They even have any chance to go up. And the crypto can volatile means that the price can go up in some case.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, if you're bullish crypto, the crypto markets tend to rise and fall together. So if you're generally bullish on crypto, holding like Scroll tokens or otherwise, it's probably a good idea. Like it's probably going to do well. This is not financial advice, but like if you think in general crypto is going to go up, it's probably going to do well.
Yeah. Okay. And another one you mentioned is the liquid. I think the Etherfi is very different from the other crypto card. The one point is you can deposit your crypto into the liquid, and that is maybe the yield generating protocol, and you can borrow or just spend this liquid assets when you buy something. I think that is very clever design to use it. But I think I'm not sure because I'm not a borrow mode user. Why people need to use it?
I think most people don't borrow. Most people just spend it directly. And you can spend. So we have one of the liquid vaults, which are these DeFi strategy vaults. We have a liquid USD vault. And so you deposit into that, it deploys it into various DeFi protocols. There's obviously a risk associated with that, but it pays you some rewards as part of that. So you can just deposit your dollars, for example, into this liquid USD vault and then just spend that. So then it becomes analogous to like a high interest savings account, where it earns an interest rate that's much higher than you'd normally get from a savings account, and then you just draw money from it and spend it as you go. That's actually what I do. I deposit all my dollars into liquid USD and then just spend that. That's a good way to go. But yeah, a lot of users do borrow. They probably are smarter because if they had done that when ETH was trading at $1,500, now it's trading at $4,300 or whatever. So it's like they never had to sell their ETH. They just got all that price appreciation, and then They've just been borrowing and spending their worthless fiat instead of their ETH. But obviously, there's risk associated with that. Obviously, if it goes down, then you...
Yeah, they need to manage the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Another reason, there's tax reasons. Like, I don't know how the taxes here work in Taiwan, but if you sell your crypto, you have to pay taxes on it. Oh. So if someone who bought ETH at $100, that's their tax basis. So if they were to sell it today, they have to pay like 30 or 40% tax on the gain from $100 to $4,000, $4,300. Whereas if they just borrow against it, they don't pay the tax. And instead, they pay a relatively low interest rate on their borrowed dollars.
That makes sense. Okay, so I think another one, the feature is the self-custodial. Recently, I recommend my friend to apply a Ether.fi Cash card, but he have some bad experience before, for example, the FTX or some centralized exchange.
Right.
To collapse and his money gone. And he asked how percentage this Etherfi will collapse. I think that is very real problem that normal people think about because that is the traditional credit card or debit card, how it works.
So it's self-custodial, I mean, as we've said. So in other words, Etherfi can disappear tomorrow. Like everyone, maybe we all get hit by a bus. We all disappear. It doesn't matter. Like your money is still there. You can pull it out. It's your money. You have full control over your assets. That's what self-custodial means. So that type of risk, like FTX or Terra, I guess, or whatever, Celsius, BlockFi, that risk does not exist. We're not doing anything with the assets. You can check. You can literally look on chain and you deposit $1,000. You can see, okay, that $1,000 is still in that contract. It hasn't moved. We haven't done anything with it. But it is important to say that there is a different kind of risk, and that's smart contract risk. So this is where if the smart contracts are, there's a mistake somewhere that could be exploited by a hacker, that's the risk that you're taking because you are depositing assets into a smart contract-based system. There's a lot of things we do to try and make that as safe as possible. We do smart contract audits, of course. We do what's called formal verification, which is where we make a mathematical model of all the code and make sure that as best we can, that it can't be exploited. We have active monitoring. There's layers and layers of security that's in place around this stuff. But it's not 100%. I mean, that's a very different kind of risk than that's like, if you put your gold into a bank vault, like there's some chance that someone goes in and like blows up the vault and steals the gold. Like that's the type of risk we're talking about here. That's very different than the risk of like you put your money into a bank, they go gamble it, and then they lose all the money, and then you're just you're screwed. Those are two different types of risk. As I said, the second type of risk doesn't really exist because it's non-custodial. But the first type of risk of hackers and things like that, that's a real risk.
We discussed the Liquid before. Currently, I collect the community feedback about Liquid APY. They said they call API data and to collect the Liquid APY, but it seems not identical to the platform, how it shows.
Yeah, so these, just to explain a little bit how these Liquid vaults, I know we've already kind of talked about it, but these are what are called DeFi strategy vaults. You put in USD into a vault or ETH into a vault or BTC into a vault, and these vaults automatically deploy them into DeFi protocols. Could be like Aave or Pendo or Morpho or whatever, and earn rewards, which then the user gets. So the upside of that is you get higher rewards than just by staking or holding those assets. You get more rewards. But you're taking on more risk because now it's deployed into a bunch of different DeFi protocols. So you have to take that into account. And again, obviously, we do a lot of work to try and keep it safe, but it's more DeFi risk. One of the decisions that we made, there's a number of different parties that are involved in each of these vaults. There's Etherfi, which for the most part is just the front end, like the UI. And then there's Veda that provides the smart contract system for these vaults that do the deployment into different DeFi strategies. And then each vault has a strategy manager. So there's these three players that are involved, and all of them sort of come together to create these products. One of the decisions that was made I guess, by the strategy manager is there's two types of yield that comes from these vaults. There's what's called variable yield, and that just comes from the rewards of these different things that the vault deploys into. And then there's what's called fixed yield, which comes from partnerships that were made with some of the different strategies that Vault deploys into for tokens that they will get from these protocols. So for example, the ETH Vault deployed into a chain called Eclipse, which is like a Solana SVM, whatever. It's another chain. And in exchange, Eclipse was going to provide their token after they TGE'd. And they committed that they would provide a certain rate of yield on those vaults. Now, that doesn't show up. So we say, okay, well, Eclipse promised X% yield. We call that fixed yield on the vault. But that's not going to show up on chain because it doesn't show up until after the TGE because it's a promise. It's like a sort of like an IOU. So if you just look at the on-chain yield, it's going to be lower than the advertised rate because the advertised rate includes these future tokens that are going to be provided to Vault. So that's one issue. That's probably the biggest issue that creates a lot of confusion among users. This ultimately just creates a bad experience because people see one headline number. They see, okay, I'm making 10% on my ETH. But most users, I think, logically don't like click in and look at the strategies and say, oh, this is promised yield from future token airdrops, which can get delayed or the tokens drop in value or whatever. And then the rest of it is this fixed yield. They just look at the on-chain yield reasonably, and they see that it doesn't match the advertised rate, and they get frustrated. So that's really shitty. So we have made a decision we're no longer going to do these like future TGE-based promised yields because they just create constant frustration among users, and frankly, it just becomes hard to live up to the promise, mainly because it's not in our control. Because like, again, if a project delays their token launch by 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, we can't force them to launch a token. But like, they said they would promise this yield, and the users are frustrated, and so we're stuck like not being able to do anything about it. So a decision that we've made is we're no longer going to do that anymore. So the USD Vault is now doesn't have any of this like promised yield. The ETH Vault is mostly like hard yield, let's say, but it's going to take some time before it's 100% hard yield. There's a bunch of other issues that we're looking at in terms of just like how the data is reported. Maybe I'll just say that internally and me personally I've been very frustrated with this the liquid product. I don't think it's lived up to what I would consider like a good enough standard as a product for a bunch of different reasons. And so we're doing a lot of work to make it better. So I understand the frustration. I'm not happy with it.
I think the yield product is not easy to manage because in one hand, you need to find a more high yield in every place, in DeFi place, in TGE, in a lot of places. And some yield sources is transparent, but some yield sources is not transparent, maybe have lock time or something like that. So it's very hard to manage. But I think users get us a feedback that is they don't know why the liquid products advertise that number of yield, but he cannot find the correct yield when he actually deposits the crypto inside it.
Yeah, I mean, I can promise that by the end of September, which is like, I guess next 3+ weeks, it should be a lot better. Like we're making a bunch of changes. I can commit that it'll be a lot better at that point. At least it'll be like very transparent. It'll be really clear what the rewards are. No like confusing UX. It'll just be like, what it says is exactly what you're getting in an easy to understand way.
This is very important because I think the yield function or yield feature is the core function in the Etherfi Cash because people don't just want to put the crypto inside it.
I think almost everybody that uses cash uses the liquid vaults. There's over $200 million of ETH that's in the liquid ETH vault. There's I think like $20 or $30 million in the USD vaults. It's a huge part of the value proposition, which is why it needs to be a really good product and why, as I said, I'm frustrated that it hasn't been as good as it needs to be.
Okay. So do you have observed some surprising user behavior or user pattern or challenge you have been seeing?
On the cash card specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every scam you can imagine. There were a lot of users that were doing like various forms of cashback farming where they would just manufacture spend. For example, like users set up a PayPal account, like their own PayPal account, and they would just pay themselves, get 3% cash back. PayPal charges you whatever it is, however many percent, for the payment, and then they would just do this over and over again. And variations of that. We had one user was very honest with us and told us like, hey, I want to buy $500,000 a month worth of gold and just keep doing that and looping it. So they would buy the gold, sell it, and just farm the cash back. And so we've been working really hard to put a stop to that because like that's not real behavior. Those users are not going to stick around. They're not using the product as a product. They're just, they're just farming cash back. This isn't like, some, dumb DeFi Ponzi. Like we're actually trying to build a product that makes sense that people want to use. So that's not healthy behavior. So we've been working hard to like stamp that out. There's always going to be some of that. And some of that is okay. Like, for example, someone gave this example on Twitter. Like you go to a grocery store, you spend $50 on groceries, and some grocery stores let you do cash back where they charge you $100 and they give you $50 in cash. And so something like that is fine. It's a real transaction. You're buying groceries. You're getting like some extra cash back from the grocery store. So you're like boosting your cash back. That's fine. That's totally okay. But if what you're doing is like you're depositing money to some gambling site and with your credit card and then withdrawing it and just keep looping it like that, that's not okay. That's not the intended effect. So we saw that. Those are like vanilla things. We saw some much more sketchy behavior. Let's just say we ended up having to turn off the entire country of Colombia because of some activity that we saw that we were just like, whatever's happening here, we don't want to have any part of it. And so we just literally had to turn off the entire country because you could see whatever. I won't even get into the details of it, but like, and it wasn't like huge amounts of money, but we noticed it very quickly and said,
oh, very interesting that story behind it because I also can feedback one use case that I encountered because Ether.fi Cashback is crypto in your wallet.
Yeah.
And so it cannot, just like bank can get the points, just cancel it or just remove it. They cannot do that.
Right.
So when you check in the hotel and the hotel can make a deposit before, and if you don't use any complimentary, you can get the full refund back.
No, we solved that. That's already, that's a scam. Because when you get the refund, it subtracts the cash back. So you're not doubling up on that. That was a very early scam that, I don't even know if people were scamming it, but we saw that like, whether it's a hotel or a gas station or whatever, it would put a charge and you get the cash back and then it would get reversed. And people got to keep the cash back. So very quickly we were like, okay, in the case of refunds, we have to subtract the cash back, and that is no longer.
So maybe the end of the result is you pay money to buy the SCR Squirrel token. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. If it happens on a normal course of like affairs, it nets out and like you end up in the same place. But if someone is doing it aggressive like farming, then like they're basically just buying scroll tokens.
Yeah, they go to one gas station here and maybe in the half an hour, they go another gas station to do the same behavior.
We had lots of, we even got scammed for $100,000 because like our system wasn't configured correctly. And someone, we fixed this so you can't do this anymore. But someone basically, I guess they either colluded with a merchant or they created their own fake merchant and they just forced a bunch of refunds through. And our system didn't have the proper checks to make sure the refund matched a real transaction. And so they basically forced a bunch of refunds and got a bunch of money out of the system that way. And so, that was an expensive lesson we learned.
I think that is very mouse and cat story.
Yeah, that's going to be a never-ending. We know for sure, I forget the name, there was some other crypto card program that had very loose checks. Like they had no KYC or their KYC was very weak and they had no restrictions of any kind and they weren't doing transaction monitoring. And so people used them for money laundering aggressively until eventually the program, they got shut down because of course, you can't keep doing that. So we do a lot of work to make sure like the transaction volume that's actually happening in our system is legitimate. We have all kinds of systems in place to try and prevent scamminess, but it's a never-ending battle. Like people will come up with more and more creative ways.
Maybe you can say the majority of the problem are already be solved.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think 95% of the transaction volume, probably even more, is legitimate. Like we regularly do spot checks where we look at what's going on and like actually see in detail like what's happening in the system. And honestly, it's pretty easy to tell like when sketchy behavior going on. It's very obviously different from normal day-to-day. Uber Eats, someone goes to a coffee shop and buys groceries, like normal transactions that like make sense versus sketchy behavior. It's very easy to tell those two apart.
It's just like the security that's no 100%.
Yeah, that's right. And we have people in some cases that do both. They use the card legitimately, but then they also deposit lots of money into like gambling sites. And so we identify those and we turn off cash back for like if those merchants are clearly not in line with like normal day-to-day usage of the card. Like I said, anything where you're taking money and turning it into a different form of money, that shouldn't be getting you cash back. Like anything where you withdraw money from an ATM with the card, like obviously you shouldn't be getting cash back on that. So anything that's equivalent to that, we do lots of monitoring to make sure that doesn't get rewarded.
We're looking ahead. Your perspective on the future of the stablecoin, DeFi, or Ethereum?
What can I say? I mean, I think stablecoins are obviously going to be a huge market. I mean, it's already a huge market in certain regions, certain countries. I mean, stablecoins are almost like the default way that people transact. In Latin America, I think something like 30% of people already use stablecoins regularly for transactions. So I think it's going to be a larger and larger market, and it's going to become more and more of the norm. I don't actually think stablecoins are going to be a very profitable market, though, because right now, you have Tether and I guess Circle. They get to collect all the interest rates on the bonds that back the stablecoin. The user doesn't really get anything in most cases. But that's obviously not going to be the future. Like relatively soon, within the next year or two, like almost all of that yield from bonds is going to get passed on to the user in one way or another. And so I think the profit margin on stablecoins is actually probably going to compress. And in and of itself, it's not going to be a very interesting business. Payments, I think, is going to stay interesting. But like stablecoins in and of themselves is not going to be too interesting. Right now, obviously, most stablecoins are on Ethereum. That's probably pretty durable because, I mean, if you're an institution and you're holding billions of dollars in assets, Ethereum's the only network I would have any trust in holding, those kinds of assets on. Like I wouldn't, nice things about it, but like I wouldn't put $1 billion on Solana. Like no way. Same with Hyperliquid. I mean, some people clearly are comfortable holding lots of assets there, but like it's not the same level of security as like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum network.
So how you manage, there have many brands of stable coins the user hold, and in the end, maybe they want to deposit into the Etherfi Cash card. How you handle it?
We support USDC and we support USDT, and we're going to support a bunch of others, which we're going to be announcing soon. So we're going to support a whole variety of them. We have no objection there. I don't think the user should care. Like in the same way that, you go to a website to buy something, do you care whether their servers are running on Amazon or Google or Azure? Like you don't care. Like that's not your problem. Like you're just going to a website to buy something.
Yeah.
In the exact same way, when a user wants to, deposit their assets and use it in day-to-day, they shouldn't care what chain it's on, what stablecoin it's using, what any of that crap, like completely irrelevant for the user. What the user cares about is the task that they're trying to get done. Like as a user, I want good interest rate on my dollars or ETH or BTC. I want to be able to borrow against it. I want to be able to spend it. That's all I care about. I don't care like all the nerd stuff.
Yeah.
I say this as an engineer. All the like techie stuff, that's not the user's problem. I think one of the issues with crypto is that we try to expose all of this complexity to the user as it like by making it their problem, But like that's not the right way to build products. That's not how you build a product that gets millions or billions of users. It really needs to be focused on actually just solving a problem that the user has.
Yeah, because I think is that a viable way that Ether.fi Cash can support maybe very easy convert function that even I deposit not supported stablecoin, it also can deposit as USDC or USDT. That.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's already a convert function. It's not in the iOS app because Apple doesn't allow that. But it's in the web app. There's a convert function, so you can swap from different assets, from like USD stables to ETH to BTC or whatever. You shouldn't do large transactions there because there's a lot of slippage for now. But those are things that we're working to fix.
Yeah, so maybe the user can deposit not the Ether.fi Cash supported token, but they also can use the convert function to convert a lot of variety of the crypto into the USDC or USDT to spend.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we recently integrated, I think this is live. I'm actually not sure if it's... Actually, I don't think this is live yet. We're going to be integrating a feature where you can deposit pretty much anything and it'll convert it into whatever you want.
Yeah, I think there is a FTX feature that you can deposit any kind of the USD stablecoin and it's converted to USD. And that is very easy for user that don't need to know more.
Yeah, exactly. And it needs to be one-to-one and no fees, no kind of hidden bullshit.
Yeah. I think that is also aligned with the Etherfi mission that's simplify the DeFi world. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. I think that is all. Very happy to chat with you with the Etherfi and including the restaking and the cash and the story behind the scene.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Hopefully I'll be back soon.
Okay, thank you. 那我们这一集就录到这边。如果你喜欢我们的内容的话，欢迎到 Google 上面搜寻区块市趋势的事，然后用付费订阅来支持区块市的营运。那我们就下个礼拜再见，拜拜。